Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to the Fantasy Maverick Podcast. And today we are going to talk about the Week 4 waiver wire pickups. Again, my philosophy, never stop improving your team. I got names of players you need to add, and some are even startable this week. So let's check it out. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick Podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick Podcast. And hey, before we begin today, if you could please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share this with your friends, and of course, subscribe. All those things help my channel out, and I very, very much appreciate it. So thank you in advance for doing that. But it's time to start talking about the Week 4 pickups. Guys, you need to look at right now because, again, my philosophy, never stop improving your team. And also, when I'm looking at these waiver wire pickups, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at volume. Volume is the most important thing. You can't just go off of like the points because anybody can go off in a week, like Deshaun Jackson did yesterday. You know, it's like, am I going to go ahead and pick up Deshaun Jackson now because he had a couple, that huge play, you know, that 75-yard touchdown reception? Look, that was an amazing play. It was a boom play. But this is not something you can't trust the volume for Deshaun Jackson. He's not on my list because this could be a one and done thing. You don't know. He's an older player too, so you know there's a whole bunch of issues with that. But these guys are guys that are getting good volume, should be getting good volume going forward, and that's why I'm putting them on the target list. So let's just get right into it, man. So let's talk about it. Now, I only have one quarterback this week, but I think it's a quarterback that you need to pick up, and that would be Sam Darnold of the Carolina Panthers. Now, the big thing here is that the Adam Gase effect is real. And it's unfortunate that Adam Gase is now out of the NFL because we're not going to have this anymore going forward. But here we've got another example of a person who has escaped Adam Gase's horrible coaching and has all of a sudden become an effective quarterback. He has, for 2 weeks in a row, gotten over 300 passing yards. Now, in week 3, he didn't get any passing touchdowns, which is a little concerning, but he did run in 2 rushing touchdowns. He was the 5th best quarterback for fantasy in week 3. And I think Darnold is going to do the same thing that Tannehill was able to do back in 2019, where he came in and became basically a top 6 quarterback going forward. I think that's where he's heading. Now, I'm not sure I am confident enough to start him yet, but I think he's absolutely worth a spot on your bench. And let's just see what happens. But things are looking really good for him and this offense. So I'm excited about it. So like I said, I recommend Sam Darnold. He's only 22% rostered right now. Very easy to get. And especially if you've got a quarterback who's really struggling right now, I think that he's worth putting on your bench, and let's just see what happens. So let's move on to running backs. Now, running backs, I got 3 names this week. The first one is just the most unlikely name. And it's on the same level as last week when I was recommending Cordarrelle Patterson. But am I really going to recommend Peyton Barber? I think I'm going to. He's only 7% rostered right now. And the thing that I don't understand why the Raiders paid Kenyon Drake $11 million to come and basically be a backup running back. Kenyon Drake was the backup running back to Josh Jacobs, and now Kenyon Drake is the backup running back to Peyton Barber now that Josh Jacobs is out with an injury. I don't understand. I don't understand the logic for this. I don't understand why they paid Kenyon Drake so much, but here we are. Peyton Barber got 23 touches and 5 targets in week 3. That means he was the 4th most used running back behind only Derrick Henry, Alexander Madison, and Alvin Kamara for week 3. That is shocking. And this is a guy that wasn't even on the team week 1. He came in, I think last week, he came in week 2. He wasn't even on the team at the start of the season. But shoot, as long as Josh Jacobs is out, Peyton Barber is a starter. If Josh Jacobs gets injured again, Peyton Barber is the starter. That's why you need to get him on your bench. So just go with it. We're going to ride with this, and we'll see what happens in week 4. Josh Jacobs might be back. If he's back, I wouldn't play him. But, again, he needs to be on your bench. Okay, and I already mentioned that he's 7% rostered. Okay, so next guy that you need to check to see if he's on the waiver wire, and if he is, you need to get him, is Alexander Madison of the Minnesota Vikings, who is currently only 68% rostered. So there's a 1 in 3 chance that he's sitting on your waiver wire right now. And if there's one thing that we know for certain in fantasy football, is that Dalvin Cook is going to be injured and Dalvin Cook is going to miss games. He does it all the time. So that's why you need to have Madison on your roster. And it really paid off in week 3 if you happen to start him, because he ended up with 26 touches and 8 targets. Crazy amount of volume. That is a huge amount of volume. And as long as Dalvin is dealing with health issues, Madison is a must start going forward. So please check your waiver wire to see if he's available, because he needs to be on your waiver. And the third guy is a guy that I've already got claims in on, but obviously the hamstring injury to Christian McCaffrey makes Chuba Hubbard a must start in fantasy. Just like last year when Mike Davis took over the CMC role and was extremely effective for fantasy, the same thing can be said for Chuba. In week 3, that was Thursday night game, he got 11 touches and 5 targets in that game, and that was just a partial game. I think that was only 3/4 of a game. So my threshold for running backs is always 15 touches and targets. So Chuba was over that with only a partial game's worth of usage. So anyway, I think that is, again, a must roster and a must start as long as CMC is out. And we know that CMC is going to be out for multiple weeks going forward here. So you need to get him. So he is the highest priority guy for me. If I had to rank these, I would say Chuba is the first, Madison would be second, Barber is third. And that's how you should set your roster. Remember, this is another thing I talked about. Don't just go for one of these guys, go for all of them, but set the waiver priority so that they all offset against the same player you're dropping off your roster. So that way you have a good chance to get at least one of them when the waivers clear on Wednesday. So let's move on to wide receivers. And I got 3 wide receivers. And the first one is a guy that that I was excited about preseason, saying that you need to target him, Jacobi Meyers, who is currently only 58% rostered. And, admittedly, he hasn't done that much this season. He has not been a startable asset so far this season. But when facing a negative game script, as he did in week 3, all of a sudden he got a huge volume of targets. 14 targets in week 3. And he ended up with 9 catches for 94 yards. That's 18.4 fantasy points in PPR leagues. So that is absolutely a startable asset. Now, looking over the next month, we've got at least 2 games that New England's going to have where they are going to face negative game scripts, including next week's game against Tampa Bay. So I think he is a must start next week as a flex option, but you need to get him on your roster for sure. I think he's a great choice. And on that same vein, Nelson Agholor is also one that you can possibly add, although Agholor has not gotten the volume that Myers has gotten. So he's not as good an option, but he's a good second-tier pickup if you want to go that way. Another one is another guy who, again, he ranked very well on my app preseason, and he certainly paid off so far. Cole Beasley, who is only 53% rostered right now, has had 2 of 3 games with 13 targets. That is an insane amount of volume for the position he basically plays, which is the wide receiver 2 on this offense. But the issue with Cole Beasley is that in week 2, he only got 4 targets. And for me, for season-long fantasy, this is the worst kind of player to have because a lot of people are going to pick up Cole Beasley. And a lot of people are going to start him for this week's game and watch him go out and get only 4 targets because that's what players like this do. But I think you got to roster him. I think you've got to put him on your bench at least, just to have him available, because the upside is so big with this guy. Again, Cole Beasley is much better as a daily fantasy play. If you're playing daily fantasy, I would go in and try to start Cole Beasley in my lineups, because the upside is so huge on someone like that. But for season long, I'm a little bit less enthusiastic, but I still think he's worth a roster spot. Another guy who has really looked good this year, and one thing that most people don't realize is that it is a contract year, and I love contract year players because of this. And this guy is an example why. Christian Kirk, who is only 51% rostered right now, and I believe on a prior week I already listed him as an ad that you should have gotten him onto your waiver wire. Onto your bench. But he got low volume in weeks 1 and 2, was very productive and efficient with what he got. But finally in week 3, with DeAndre Hopkins being limited, he ended up getting 8 targets, and he put up his first 100-yard game of the year, and only the 4th of his career from what I understand. And so I'm not ready to trust this volume yet, again, because this past week was because DeAndre Hopkins was injured, but I think he needs to be on your bench. He's a great bench play, and should Hopkins have more health issues, that Christian Kirk would be in line to be basically the top target on this team, maybe going, Rondale Moore also. You got Rondale Moore there. But I think that Christian Kirk is going to be a top target on this team should anything happen to DeAndre Hopkins. So because of that, I like him. I think he needs to be on your bench. So go ahead and see if he's available. Now, for tight ends, I only have one tight end this week, this week. And it's a guy that, of course, I already dropped off of one of my leagues because he had a 0 burger in week 1. But Mike Gesicki got 12 targets in week 3. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. This team that I had Mike Gesicki on, I'm calling it my snake bit team, because I am having nothing but bad luck with this team. Consider that this week, this team consisted of both Christian McCaffrey and A.J. Brown, both guys going out with hamstring injuries. Plus, I've gotten no points from my tight end position on this team. I mean, it is just a snake bit deluxe. I'm about to go to 1 and 2, as I could only score like 85 points or something terrible. It's a standard points league. But now I'm like, do I need to go pick up Mike Gesicki? Now it clearly looks like Jacobi Brissett, who's a quarterback now because Tua is out, has a nice connection with Gesicki and has utilized him both last week and this week. He's got 18 targets over the past 2 weeks. So yes, all of a sudden, Mike Gesicki, who I left for dead, is now a viable play for fantasy football. And especially if you're struggling with your tight end, as I am, I'm probably going to pick him back up and watch him get 0 points this next week. That's what's going to happen. It's unfortunate, but it's because of my snake big team, and I apologize for that. But anyway, Gesicki, he's a pickup. And he's my only tight end that I like right now. There are some other tight ends that did get some decent volume this week, but it was like the first time we'd seen anything from them. And so it's like, okay, I can't trust that. I can't recommend to pick up some player that got, like 1 target in week 1 and 0 targets in week 2 and then got 7 targets in week 3. I can't trust that. There's no reason to pick that player up. I got to wait. I'm going to hold off on that. But Gesicki, again, he's been good the past 2 weeks. So let's go with that. So finally, let's talk about defenses you want to pick up if you're going to stream this position. It's always great to stream to stream defenses, as there's always good defenses available on the waiver wire, because typically only 12 defenses are actually rostered. So on any given week, you've got 20 plus defenses to choose from off the waiver wire. Here's 2 that look to have great matchups this week. The first one is New Orleans, who's only 47% rostered. And I got to say, man, the Saints defense has been very good this weekend. They completely shut down Green Bay in week 1. And then in week 3, again, had another huge week and shut down the Patriots. And they have been the number 2 scoring defense in both week 1 and week 3. And who do they get in week 4? But they get the Giants and Daniel Jones. I'm willing to take that on, man. I'm willing to say that they're going to have another very good week for fantasy football. So it's a start for me. And another team that I really, really like this week is Tennessee, who's only 14% rostered. So this is widely available. And the Tennessee defense has been nothing special. They're not that good, just like they were last year. They're just not that good. But who do they get in week 4? They get the Jets. Yes, the Jets, which just allowed the Denver defense to score 19 points this past week. So again, a fantastic choice for your fantasy football team. So that's what you need to do. Go out and set your waiver priorities. Get yourself some of these players, as many as you can, and, just roll with it, man. I had a rough week 3. Things did not go my way. I started a couple of players thinking that they were going to have really big weeks, and they did not, and it killed my teams. So I've got to recover from this. I've also got this one team, and again, it was the favorite team that I drafted. My favorite team, Fantasy Football Players Championship. It was such an amazingly awesome draft. And this team has scored really, really good each week. This week, I have scored over 170 points. It's a PPR league with tight end premium. I scored over 170 points. That is really, really good. What does my opponent do? My opponent is projected to score 196 points. I think he has 2 players playing tonight. He has gotten he has had an unbelievable week, which included Josh Allen as his quarterback. Didn't matter that I had Justin Herbert as mine. But anyway, it's just one of those things. It's like, what in the world is going on? This team is really good. Has scored well each week so far this season, but I have been massively outscored by my opponents. It's one of those things where it doesn't matter what my team does. Whoever I'm playing is going to be the top scoring team in the league that week. And that's what's happened the first 3 weeks of the season. I don't know what to do. But luckily, I do have the back door to the playoffs, which is being one of the top scorers in the league, which I am, which this team is. So I've got that going for me. But still, it's rough. It's hard to see your team at 0-3 when they've done very well, especially when they scored 170 points. And they lost. So anyway, and I would have beaten. I don't think anyone else is going to score over 170 points besides this team that I'm playing against. Every other team in the league I would have beat except for this guy. And so there you go. That's fantasy football for you, man. The agony and the ecstasy. That's what it is. So good luck in week 4. I'll be back on Wednesday with my starts and sits for this week. And in the meantime, have yourself a great fantasy week, and good luck on the waiver wire. We'll talk soon.